Picture this. You walk through your front door after a long day. Your dog is already there, has probably been there for the last 20 minutes, stationed at the exact spot where your scent first bleeds under the door. Their whole body is moving, not just the tail. The hindquarters, the shoulders, the chest, everything is oscillating in that full-body shimmy that seems almost physically impossible to contain. They're whimpering. Their paws are tapping the floor like a pianist warming up before a concert. And you, naturally, instinctively, because you love this animal more than most people in your life, you drop your bag, you crouch down, and you let them crash into you. It feels perfect. It feels mutual. It feels like the purest exchange of love that exists on this planet. But here's what nobody tells you. In that exact moment, in a window so narrow it lasts only 3 seconds, your dog was sending you a signal that had nothing to do with excitement and everything to do with psychological survival. And the way most owners respond to it, with the best possible intentions, is quietly, invisibly, doing damage that accumulates over months and years into something that veterinary behaviorists now recognize as one of the leading causes of chronic anxiety in domestic dogs across the Western world. If your dog has ever met you at the door like that, type the number 3 in the comments right now, because what you're about to learn will permanently change the way you walk into your own home. To understand what is actually happening in that 3-second window, you have to go back roughly 15,000 years, not metaphorically, literally, because the behavior your dog is displaying at that door is not a modern invention. It is not a learned habit from living in apartments and watching television with you. It is the surface expression of a neurological architecture that was being shaped long before the first human being ever decided to call a wolf a companion. Evolutionary ethologists, scientists who study the biological roots of behavior across generations, have traced the emotional bonding mechanisms in domestic dogs back to a critical period in early canine evolution, when the wolves who survived were not the strongest or the fastest, but the ones who were most exquisitely sensitive to human emotional states. Think about what that means. Natural selection over thousands of generations filtered the canine genome to produce an animal whose brain is literally wired to read you. Not just your face, not just your voice, your cortisol levels, your micro-expressions, the subtle asymmetry in your gait when you're stressed, the barely perceptible shift in your breathing pattern when you're sad. Dogs didn't develop these abilities because they're sweet. They developed them because the animals who couldn't do it didn't eat. And embedded within that evolutionary legacy is a neurochemical system so sophisticated that researchers at Azabu University in Japan spent years documenting it before the scientific community fully accepted what they were seeing. When a dog makes prolonged eye contact with their owner, the kind that happens in that charged electric moment of reunion at the front door, both the human and the dog experience a measurable spike in oxytocin, the same hormone, simultaneously. Oxytocin is the neurochemical most closely associated with maternal bonding, with trust, with the feeling of being safe inside a relationship. The fact that it surges in both species at the same moment, triggered by the same gaze, is not a coincidence. It is coevolution in action. It is 15,000 years of two species learning to speak the same emotional language, and the front door reunion is one of the most concentrated expressions of that language that exists. But here is where the science gets complicated, and where most dog owners, through no fault of their own, begin to fracture something fragile. In that 3-second window, from the moment your dog first locks eyes with you to the moment the greeting ritual either resolves or escalates, your dog is not simply expressing joy. They are asking a question, a neurological question, and the answer you give them in those 3 seconds will determine their emotional baseline for the next several hours. The question is this: is the world still predictable? Dogs are not wired for the kind of abstract existential anxiety that human beings carry. They don't lie awake at 3 in the morning worrying about their careers, but they are profoundly, biologically dependent on what behavioral scientists call social predictability, the consistent, readable patterns of a trusted attachment figure. When you leave the house, your dog's sympathetic nervous system activates. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, begins to rise. Research published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science found that cortisol levels in dogs spike within the first 30 minutes of owner absence, and in some animals remain elevated for the entire duration of separation. Your dog, while you are buying groceries or sitting in a meeting, is running on a low-grade stress current that only you can turn off. And when you come home, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, safety and connection system, is primed to fire. The cortisol wants to drop. The oxytocin wants to surge. The body wants resolution. Type a 1 in the comments if you've ever noticed your dog seems almost desperate when you come home, like it's more than just happiness, like there's something urgent underneath it, because that urgency is real and it has a biological name. That urgency is called a cortisol recovery loop, and the 3-second window is when it either closes cleanly or gets stuck open. Here is what most owners do. They walk in, their dog erupts, and they match the energy. They get loud, they get big, they escalate the excitement because it feels loving to meet their dog where they are. And their dog spins higher and they respond higher, and within 30 seconds the greeting has become a fever pitch of arousal that feels, on the surface, like pure joy. What it actually is, neurologically, is a stress loop that never closed. The cortisol didn't drop, it spiked again. The sympathetic nervous system, which was supposed to hand off to the parasympathetic, stayed activated. And the dog, whose brain was asking, "Is the world still predictable?" received the answer, "No. The world is loud and unpredictable and overwhelming, even when it's wonderful." Over time, this pattern, repeated every single day, sometimes twice a day, begins to recalibrate the dog's nervous system baseline. Behavioral neurologists call this process sensitization. The threshold for arousal drops. The recovery time lengthens. And dogs who go through this process for months or years begin to display what veterinary behaviorists diagnose as generalized anxiety. Not because anything bad happened to them, but because the neurological pattern of never fully resolving stress became the default setting of their brain. So what does the 3-second window actually ask of you? It asks for stillness. Not coldness, not rejection, not a clinical withholding kind of detachment that leaves your dog confused and hurt. It asks for the specific, intentional quality of calm that communicates in the only language your dog's nervous system can actually receive. You are safe, I am here, the world has not changed, you can let it go. The science behind this is rooted in something called social referencing, a behavior that dogs share with human infants. When a child encounters an unfamiliar stimulus, they look to their caregiver's face to determine how to emotionally classify the experience. If the caregiver's face is calm, the child's nervous system takes a breath. If the caregiver's face is alarmed or overexcited, the child escalates. Dogs do the same thing. In that 3-second window, your dog is doing an extraordinarily rapid scan of your emotional state, your body language, your breathing, your energy, and they are using that information to decide how their own nervous system should respond. When you walk in calm, when you take one quiet breath before you engage, when you lower your body slowly and let your dog come into you rather than crashing into them, you are sending a neurological signal that travels faster than conscious thought. You are speaking directly to the amygdala, the fear and stress processing center of your dog's brain, in the language it was designed to receive. And the cortisol drops. The parasympathetic system fires. The oxytocin exchange begins from a place of genuine safety rather than escalated arousal, and the loop closes. There is a researcher named Gregory Burns at Emory University who spent years training dogs to lie still inside MRI machines so that he could watch their brains in real time. What he found reshaped everything the scientific community believed about canine cognition. The caudate nucleus, a region deep in the brain associated with anticipation of reward and emotional recognition, activates in dogs not just in response to food, not just in response to play, but most powerfully in response to their owner's scent and presence, more powerfully than almost any other stimulus. Burns described it as evidence that dogs don't merely enjoy our company. They need it. Our presence is a primary neurological reward. Our arrival home is not an exciting event to them. It is a biological necessity being fulfilled. Which means the 3-second window is not a training technique. It is not a behavioral trick you implement to have a calmer dog. It is the moment you either honor or overlook the weight of what you actually mean to this animal. It is the moment you either receive the full depth of what they are offering you, or accidentally teach them that offering it fully is not safe. And if you're sitting with that right now, if you're replaying every chaotic, beautiful, loud homecoming you've ever had and wondering whether you got it wrong, understand this. The nervous system is plastic. It learns in patterns, but it unlearns them too. Every single time you come home from this day forward is a new 3-second window, a new chance to answer the question correctly. Is the world still predictable? Yes. Are you safe? Always. Can you let it go now, please? Your dog has been asking you that question every day since the first morning you walked out the door and they watched you go. They ask it with their whole body. They ask it with that particular whimper that sounds like it comes from somewhere ancient and wordless. They ask it because 15,000 years ago, something remarkable happened between our two species, something that has no real parallel anywhere else in the natural world. An animal chose to trust us completely, not because it was easy. Not because we were always worthy of it, but because that trust, that co-regulated, oxytocin-soaked, neurochemically profound bond, turned out to be the thing that let both of us survive. The least we can do is take 3 seconds to answer them properly. If this video changed the way you see your dog, if it gave language to something you've always felt but never understood, then subscribe, because every week on this channel we go exactly this deep. We don't do tips and tricks. We do the real science of what your dog is telling you and what it means to truly listen. Your dog has been paying attention to you since the moment you met. It's time to return the favor.